Well, can you hear me? Because it seemed that we had a glitch, which is not so often we have experienced this time. So can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Sounds great. And
I can hear you as well. Yep.
Okay. See, technology is most of the time is our friend, but apparently today it didn't want to really at least let us play the videos. That's not good. Can you turn on your cameras, gentlemen?
Hello.
Hello.
That's good. Hello. I think Deborah will join us in a second. So, guys, I am so thrilled to see both of you again. Dan, we saw each other a year ago. You were in a different role at that time.
That's correct.
And Adam, I have kind of seen you when you got the 100K, right?
Yeah, we did a remote video for that.
And that has that given you any attention from the market, or has it just been a waste of time, or how was that?
No, it's gotten us attention, some attention from the market, certainly. Also from HP. Yeah, I think they were pretty excited about that because we were very enthusiastic about that machine,
Yeah, I know that, and I think that both of you did. What's her name?
Adair.
Adair, precisely, yeah. So Adair and you did a wonderful job in presenting your company, and we were so fortunate that we had some footage from our previous visit to Bennett Graphics, so we could combine that with the footage that you did, right? So right. That worked out pretty good, guys. When I called you, Adam, and asked if you would attend this event, I can tell you I had two things in mind doing so, and. One of the reasons is because I'm not sick and tired of the usual suspects. That is exaggerating. But one of the things for sure that has been on all the webinars since we began the pandemic, or since the pandemic started, is there's a lot of repetition seeing people, good people, great people, but I thought it could be interesting to see new people. So you represent that, but you also represent that because I really find that Bennett Graphics and the two of you are doing something that's really great, because you're not just talking about the things, you do the things, right? You live workflow, you integrate it in everything you do, and you also dare to invest in new technologies in order to try it out and see how that can benefit Bennett Graphics. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct, and we've been very fortunate that the ones we've chosen have taken off, and our ownership has been willing to see that and plow forward with other crazy ideas that Dan and I and other people get.
You don't have any crazy idea, do you?
No, we do. No, we do. For sure.
Well, I filter them all through Dan first, so I don't have to worry as much.
Just before you go any further, I just wanted to step in here and thank Bennett Graphics for all the amazing work you have been doing during the pandemic, and everything that you guys have really stepped up. You have led in a lot of ways here, coming up with some of the applications that honestly we now see throughout the world, including the cardboard cutouts for the graduation students and all the other stuff, plus the PPE. A shining example of a printing company that has secured its place in the community of the world. So thank you so much for that. I just really wanted to mention that. Sorry, Morgan.
That means a lot. Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you.
You guys have really also just
Deborah.
one other thing. Dan does not have a LinkedIn profile, everybody. So
that's too bad.
I cannot tag him on LinkedIn. So
but
harass
Deborah, you can
Adam for his
but
information.
Deborah, you can send him a fax if you like.
Yeah, something. We have to Industry 1.0 him. We'll get it two paper cups and a string, and we'll talk to.
We have 30 or so pigeons up on the roof, and I can dispatch those out to you. Yes. They come right back, so it'll be quick.
I appropriately berated him before the webinar, so I will I will continue after. But just so you know why I didn't post his information in the chat.
Thank you.
And Deborah, in extension to what you said about Bennett Graphics, one of the things that really surprised me when Jan and I was there last year was I don't think I have been in a printing company with so many awards as with Bennett Graphics. And one of the questions I think I asked you, Adam, was that is that kind of is it like a business plan to own as many awards as possible? And I think your answer was yes. Yeah. And what I take from that, which is I really think is fantastic, that means that you're not just trying to win awards for the award's sake. You're trying to elevate the bar in your company because you always have to deliver the best, right?
That's right. It's elevating the bar in our company and for our customers, right? It's a big deal for a customer to be able to win an award. That's something that we can like, hey, look, y'all did awesome with this. Like,
yes. Not just that, but also the prestige and the credibility the customer gets working with an award-winning printer.
Oh, so that is not bad either.
Oh no, it's just really for print customers. I mean, there's no better.
Cool.
Yeah, I was just about to say you should go there once. I will take you next time I go to Georgia, because they are literally everywhere. They are on all the walls, on all the shelves, on everywhere you can go. It's just crazy.
This has been a very flattering session so far.
Yeah, and
but we're just warming you up, guys, right?
They have we win a Skodex.
An average of one award every 3 business days, and have done so for the past 15 years. So, it's nice.
Well,
your work here is done.
So let's kick Deborah out of the conversation because she has other things to attend to. So thank you, Deborah, for being part of it.
I'm not leaving. I'll be in the chat area moderating from there. So I'll just be behind the scenes. Okay. See you. Cool. And posting on LinkedIn to everybody. But Dan.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Dan. Yeah. So, guys. Now we had the fun time. Now we're going into serious business, right?
Correct.
Because as serious as we get,
as serious as we get, and it's all positive meant. But I think that when we spoke about what kind of considerations do you have as a printer in selecting this equipment versus this equipment, or this software versus this software, I thought it could be really interesting to hear from a printer's perspective, because one thing is that we often hear the vendors appreciating their own products to the highest extent, of course, right? And they should, of course. But so in this session, will we hear from you about some of the considerations that you have taken into account when you have picked whatever you have picked?
Sure. Yeah. So our approach has been extremely goal-oriented. The first kind of step in this really was understanding what was happening in the organization when I got here, and then later when Dan got here, right? Mm-hmm. So, I started off the process in estimating, which is really where it all starts anyways, and sorted out, we were doing handwritten estimate requests, handwritten prices for estimates, and a lady named Cheryl was typing them into the computer for quote letters. So it was a very archaic process, and we found those all over the company. And so we just sort of started identifying them and coming up with what the solutions are, what we would want the end result to be, right? Like, and how much we could accomplish with our current software, and how much we couldn't accomplish, and just sort of tackling it all goal by, individual step by step, right?
So Adam, when you did that and you had to go through that process, I take that if your colleagues have been used to work in the old-fashioned way for their entire life, was that a difficult transformation process from a people's perspective?
Yeah, well, it always is, right? People are the biggest hurdle to automation. It's not the work, but. It's going back to the estimating part. I was very fortunate that when I came in, although all the quote requests were handwritten, right? There was like a paper form to fill out. That was actually a better scenario to come into than a situation where the sales team is forwarding specifications and just saying "see below." Right. Yeah. So the communication was already being managed, and they were accustomed to going through a standardized process, right, for getting information back out of the company. And once they're accustomed to that, the rest of it is just improving upon that basis already. But yeah, it is all about that standardized communication.
So have you prepared a presentation, screen sharing, or you're chatting, or what is the plan with you guys now?
Our plan is just to kind of talk through it. I was going to specifically talk about the estimating journey and the software decisions we made along that path, and then sort of let Dan take over and talk about the pre-press stuff, for which he is eminently more qualified to speak.
Okay, I will turn off my camera and audio. I will be listening all the time, and then we have Q&As afterwards. So take it away, gentlemen.
Okay, sure. What's up, Dan?
What's up, man?
So over the past 6 or 7 years, we've been growing 10% year over year pretty consistently. So a lot of the processes and procedures that we had 10 years ago for getting files through pre-press and getting, like I said, quotes through the building, jobs through the building, those work great at $10 million, but at double the volume, you'll either add a lot of administrative expense to maintain those, or you'll streamline some of them. So that has been my task and Dan's task, is to see how many of those we can streamline and how quickly. So it was important to first gather an understanding of kind of what our current state was, doing that research and understanding why are we doing this, how much time are we spending, what does it mean for the company. Like I said, all the quote requests were handwritten. Job jackets, all of those were handwritten. In our MIS, 50% of our jobs had an estimate attached to them because it wasn't required to make the job. So, so there was disconnects in every single department on some level, right? So if somebody wrote shrink wrap this job in 25s on a job ticket by hand, that was going to happen regardless of whether that was in the estimate or whether that was in the order entry, or somebody was paying for it or not. It was going to happen because nobody could know what was actually requested and being paid for. So, all of our information was essentially siloed. There was no communication between, or limited communication between departments without electronic feedback anyway.
Right. And Adam, if I could, just put into that, a little bit about, my background is 33 years in the printing business, and most of that's been in Atlanta. And out of that, over time, you start to develop a feel for what technologies are important, what fits your company best, and how to put those together. So my role was pre-press up until the last 12 years. And if you work in, a high production, high energy shop like Bennett, and by the way, I've been associated with Bennett for over 25 years. Just a pleasure and an honor for me to do that. But you go into a company like I do, and you start seeing a certain technology stack that fits a certain company. And we started looking at how modular we could make the technology stack be. So Adam came in with the MIS. We had an antiquated MIS that if you're a printer, you would be highly familiar with it. Very rigid, couldn't communicate with it. To get data from it and read data back to it was nearly impossible. You could do it. It was very expensive, very clunky. So the base of this technology stack, is the MIS system. It is the estimating engine.
Yes.
And like Adam and I, Adam has taught me over the years, and I've learned a lot about estimating, is that it is the absolute foundation that's going to drive the entire shop. So in that technology stack or technology core, whatever you want to call it, it's the MIS. And then you start stacking on, are you involved in web to print? What is your market for web to print? Is it C2C, B2C, or B2B? Once you figure that out. And so the stack just keeps growing, but that foundation is the MIS. And I've learned that, like Adam is saying, that if you can turn those estimates quickly and in an automated way, everything else is pretty much gravy.
Yeah.
And then as you add the parts to this stack, Then I have an MIS I can communicate with. I can read from it, write to it, and then go back and forth and take that information that I read from it and pass it along to the other parts of the technology stack. And then
they're hopefully best in class that we can pick from.
Exactly.
That was one of the key pain points that we had, right? Was like, well, we didn't have a choice on what storefront software with the old software, right? It was
right.
a storefront software that the MIS provider was pitching, or nothing at all.
Right.
That was kind of our choice, and that was a real pain point, because it didn't achieve all the goals we wanted.
Yeah, and exactly, and it's all due to your budget. I mean, we live in a $20 million environment kind of budget. You may have $1.5 million, $2 million on up to spend on a storefront. A lot of people spend.
That's true.
We're friends with a company. We have a partnership of sharing information. They've put $32 million in their MIS, but they, it works for them and it gives them the power they need. So it's all about budget, what you have to work with. But like Adam was saying, it's being as nimble and as flexible as you possibly can in your technology stack. Because go ahead.
I was going to say our budget changed drastically once we solved some problems in estimating, right? Like
right.
we did we picked up a very inexpensive software that allowed us to start generating some instant estimates. So like when we figured out what our close rate was when we did instant estimates versus the normal, an estimator takes it, they do a price, the sales, the normal flow for printing companies. Our close rate went from 30% to 50% because it was instant, right? So you're the first one at the door, you're going to get the job. So as soon as we figured that out, our budget for what we were going to do in estimating went from, the software the third-party software we picked up to do instant estimates was $5,000 a year. It went to that was like one of the driving factors. Like we're going to incorporate this into our MIS, right? And so we in fact threw out the whole MIS and got a new one that would do that. So the budget really changed as soon as we figured out what the actual results could be.
Correct. In getting back to the technology stack, so we're trying to throw out little morsels, little buzzwords for you guys to keep you entertained in this discussion. But so as you look at the stack, obviously MIS, as you add web to print, one of the things that we found out, and I found out the hard way, been involved, online web to print for about 12 years. And it's like you say, a lot of times the MIS provider is going to want to sell you a solution that fits into their web to print workflow. It is their product. We call it a box solution. And then normally we're looking at between 15 million and 20 million, and I'm just surveying the industry, not Bennett in particular, is that when you're in the 15 to $20 million range, you're sort of stuck at buying a box solution or doing something custom.
Yeah.
Because as you get above that $20 million mark, we talk with people all over the country that are $110 million companies down to $5 million companies. And we have partnerships, sharing information and ideas with these companies. And one of the reasons that Adam and I love doing these things is because we're hoping to gain a relationship from the participants today that can contact us and say, hey, we want to be involved in an idea sharing relationship. Yeah. We want to share ideas back and forth, no trade secrets or anything like that, but processes, equipment, software. Because as we, gain people and gain members and participants to our discussion that we're currently having with other printers, it creates this community that's extremely valuable. So in that stack, going back to the stack, MIS, web to print, and then all the other extraneous things, communicating with machines, getting data back and forth. And how do we do that? And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but Adam got me excited on that part of it. I'm not just a pre-press guy, Adam. Come on.
I know.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, sure. When we got to the decision to pull that trigger on the MIS, we looked around, for 6 months, I guess, before we found the one that we wanted. And based off of what y'all are hearing from me and Dan about that technology stack, obviously what we wanted was something that we could pick and choose what we wanted to incorporate, right? So we weren't tied to X box solution, right? Like you have to buy this storefront. So we did pick what we thought was best in class and certainly most versatile, because that was a consideration too. You know, we need that storefront technology to be versatile and to be, you know, like every customer is going to have different requirements. And so I think what we picked has done that. But at any rate, on the estimating side, 58% of our estimates now are generated instantly company-wide inside of the MIS. That's kind of where we are today from where we were before with just handwritten, takes 3 days to get an estimate processes. Of those that are not generated instantly, our turn time is 2 hours on average. Industry standard is 24, and we all get pushed. Every company gets pushed to go faster than that, but we are averaging 2 hours whether you ask for it or not to turn an estimate. Those are pretty good numbers inside of that MIS. So our order entry now, we do 24% of all our jobs entered by switch enters the job. You know, the customer says, hey, I want this, or salesperson says, hey, I want this, and the job is entered and the ticket is made right there. So that's a huge administrative burden that we've kind of set about solving.
So Adam, do you think it would be a good idea to start showing some of the things that we've done? For instance, Adam built a quoting engine that operates directly in a live format with our MIS, and that we've incorporated that into our storefront. Do you think it would be good to show that, or
we could show that. I'd rather not show it because it's going to show live customer data.
No, that's true.
I don't want to spill the beans on anybody. You know what I'm saying? But I will continue to talk about that estimating thing, right? So like the biggest problem that we could have had was already solved, which was requiring the sales team to follow a process. That was one of the biggest hurdles we had. We hear it, Dan, we hear it all the time from the companies we do work with, right? Like, hey, we built this really cool tool, but nobody wants to use it.
Right.
And I know that we talk about the technology mix and this and that, but if you don't have your team like dedicated to using the tools that you're creating, then none of it's for anything. Right. So you can be as agile as you want to. You can have the tech stack that you want that's versatile and does cool stuff. And if your team is going to say see below, you still have to have a human involved, and there's no opportunity for lights out automation. Right. So.
Yeah, and what we figured out, especially dealing with pre-press and with the production aspects and with the salespeople, you know, we love salespeople, we do, but sometimes they can be a little shy of adopting a new technology because, and I understand that they don't want anything to disrupt that communication flow. But what we've done here, and again, it goes back to the owner, David Bennett, being such a tech guy. He's a really, really big techie guy. He knows the technology. He comes to us and suggests technology. He's willing to pay for the technology. And then he's behind us 100%, 110% in implementing it. So like Adam was saying, I don't want to talk in theory all day, but if the owner is not forefront in letting it be known that we're going to pursue technology and that everyone's involved and included, and this is where we're going. So my point is, if you take away a tool from an individual, a human being, whether they be sales or production folks or whatever, you've got to replace it with a much better tool. It's got to add value and benefit. It can't make their life more difficult. You just
right.
Right. And you say, well, you know, I would never do that. But sometimes I've seen in printing companies where you put in a MIS and it takes 30 minutes to enter a job versus a couple of minutes.
Right.
And you've spent maybe $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 on something like that. So this is what we're trying to avoid. And just let me know, Adam, when you want me to. I can show Switch and talk about that if you want. But you go ahead.
I thought you were doing great. I'm going to check and make sure. All right, cool. We're good. All right. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Being able to say we built this set of tools, but nobody's using it. That's an upper level management failure.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
So on our end, once we had those goals in hand, right, of we know we need instant estimates, we know we need instant jobs, we know we need lower administrative burden. It was really just a function of now we go and find the right people to put those solutions in place. That's actually something that is also critically important. In addition to having your upper management being absolutely aligned with, hey, we're going to implement these new procedures, or you're going to use this software to do X thing. That other bit is also important,
Yep.
Having the right people in place to implement that. Buying Switch or buying Monarch or buying Tharstern or buying whatever other set of software is great. But unless or buying a new folder, that's great. But if you don't have a good folder operator, it's for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a good Switch guy, it's for nothing. Mm-hmm. So it can't just be a software purchase. It's got to be a holistic approach to people and resources and printing companies don't typically have an extra couple $100,000 a year to throw at some automation dudes. It's hard to go at it. So you've got to. We were lucky that you, Dan, were able to approach solving our label issues with Switch while also working in labels. That actually made the whole process affordable, right. And allowed us to get kind of get over the burden or the hurdle, I guess, of, hey, you've got all this work to do, but also we need this automation. And it just so happened that you were able to kind of do both at the same time. And then we got ahead of the work, and now you're just focusing on the automation.
Correct.
We're lucky to be in that situation.
We are, and again, lucky for the leadership. So, for example, have done this a long time. You look at the automation, and you have to be self-aware. You have to know honestly where you're at as a company. That can be extremely painful.
Yeah.
You also have to know where you're at in the world, literally the world, and what are people doing in other countries, especially the UK and other key areas, and what are we doing as printers in the United States. And I heard a guy say it one time, and I adopted it. I can't remember who told me, but he said, you've got to remove 100 years of printing from the printer before you can proceed. And so what we've discovered beyond any doubt is that automation is two things. It's sociology and psychology. And if you can understand your environment and how it's going to affect your people, we're also big fans of Jim Collins, Good to Great and all that. And it's like, people aren't your best asset. The right people in the right seat are your best asset. And they're to be valued above anything, technology, whatever comes down the road. And so having lived the technology, I started out in printing where there were absolutely no computers. So computers came and all that evolved, and then you started seeing these technologies. And, 20 years ago, you start putting in your brain, man, if I could do this and if I could do that, and put these two together. So what we've built in a nutshell is an MIS. Is it okay, Adam, to say the MIS?
Yeah, of course.
We shopped them all, and we picked Tharstern, which is out of the UK. And we did look at the other players in the market, and it was about a year process of digging in and evaluating and all that. So Adam led all that. And the key thing is, if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're looking at changing your MIS to something that's very flexible and allows a technology stack to be attached to it, you have to know that you got to have an Adam. You got to have somebody that's going to be the champion. And that literally for a while will turn into a full-time job.
Yeah.
it's a full-time job. The mistakes printers make, and I've seen it over and over and over, and Adam has too, is they treat it like a second-class citizen. The search is treated with not the right importance. The implementation fails inevitably because it doesn't have a person on it 24/7 working it, promoting it, developing it. And then, of course, that includes the entire company. You want to bring in key people from each department and get their input, find out what they're doing, and make sure that the MIS is going to fit that. After we did that, we looked at our online store presence. And so we decided not to go with a box solution again, keep it nimble, lightweight. And so we did an open source technology, and then we hired developers to build on top of that. So we want our salespeople to walk into a sales meeting and demo a storefront. That includes variable online creation tools, the ability to have free-form templates to create whatever you want, like in a B2C, or lock it down for a B2B relationship with business cards and that kind of stuff. Talking about that technology stack, again, if we have a solid MIS and then we pick this open source like we did and we do development, it's not the end of the world if we replace our storefront with another storefront, because we know that we can pull one out and insert another one. I'm making it sound a lot simpler than it is.
We do indeed have multiple. We got Shopify stores, Yeah,
right. And then the technology the stack that we picked was NOPcommerce. Believe it or not, there are some large companies out there that you would know the names of that sell storefronts that are based on top of NOPcommerce and other open source technologies. So with that being said, that gives us that part. And then now we have other things, dealing with vendors, sending proofs out, getting proofs back, getting things approved, getting it to the press. So then to add to that technology stack, which is actually the core of everything, we installed InFocus Switch. InFocus is a subsidiary or child company to ESCO Corporation. And so InFocus has a product called Switch, and we consider Switch to be middleware. So in order to make the technology stack work, we have a middleware called Switch that connects all these parts of the stack together. So, and we'll show you that in a moment. Yeah. But so if you've got information coming in and going out of the MIS, then you need to translate that. A lot of times you're going to break down the way a certain piece of software communicates information. We typically use XML and JSON. And so we can then take the XML coming from one of the stacks of technology. We can map the XML to a style sheet that matches what the next stack is going to need to interpret. And so if you get the picture of all this information flying back and forth, and we do that.
Air traffic controller.
Yeah, it's basically all it is, and it is all happening in Switch. You can program it. I'll tell you a quick story. I've got a mentor and sort of a guy that I just follow and have kept up with for years. The guy's name is Paul O'Brien. He is on LinkedIn, by the way, Deborah, so they can find Paul O'Brien. And he doesn't like it, but he's on it. So anyway, Paul, about 8 years ago, said, "Man, let me show you this piece of software." And he did a screen share, and he said, "This is Switch." And he said, "Listen, I have built this product." He's a developer, very talented developer. He said, "I built this product from scratch, coded it." He said, "When I saw this product," he goes, "I knew instantly that I could build a massive technology stack out of this product called Switch." He says, I threw what I had away. And that's a lot. That's a high recommendation when you talk about your technology core from a guy who, has been programming since the 70s to bring on a product like Switch. So, and we'll show you that in a second, but I just wanted to get that out there.
Sure. Yeah, Switch has been really, really useful to us in the past couple of years since you've been here. We've almost, I don't even know what number, 80 or 90% of our automation we've achieved somehow using Switch in the middle somewhere to do it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and it's almost scary when you realize that if you don't have a switch, and here's the other point that I forgot to make that has been passed along to me by some really wise folks, is that if you don't have a switch-like product, you're going to build a switch-like product.
Yeah.
And then the cost of the maintenance, all the upgrades, keeping up with the technologies it's ridiculous to do unless you're in a company that can spend tens of millions of dollars doing it.
In the process of this, I was talking with a group of people who were interested in coming on to help us with some of these solutions. Essentially to be like a sort of a outsourced company that would be like a CIO equivalent. And the first thing they started talking about was we should really create an API that's our API, and then we'll use that API to communicate with all the other things. And that was when I actually bowed out of that conversation. I was like, well, that's already a thing we have. It's Switch. Switch is that middle, essentially API for us.
Right.
It's that middle communicator that takes X input and converts it to Y.
So, Adam, would it be okay if I showed that?
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to select. All right. So can everybody see that? Okay. Let's see here what we're getting. Adam, can you see that?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay.
I don't see a lot of details because it's fairly small, but I do see it.
I'm going to blow up on it. So this is what we would consider a very simple switch flow. So in Switch, you can create, and this is not a how-to in Switch. I just wanted to give you an idea what middleware for us looks like. In this flow, we're going to be receiving information, communicating with the MIS, sending information back out, and making sure that all of the pieces and parts that are connected in our stack are working together. So, for instance, how's that, Adam, on Seiz? Can you see that?
I can.
So a very simple example is bringing in mail. And we have Switch has what's called a configurator module that allows us to answer mail automatically, filter the mail, and only pass the mail through the flow that's pertinent to this flow. And you can see all these little folders and icons and connections. These are all middleware connections that allow us to do things like what you're looking at primarily here is a storefront for a client. We receive an email that there's been an order placed with the storefront. We then, this icon right here is actually communicating with our database at the storefront level, the SQL database. It's also connecting with the MIS Starstream that we have as the base of the stack. Then we, I won't go into a lot of detail because it's really boring, except for nerds and the other folks will go to sleep here. But once we connect through this module, we basically run an SQL query. We pull down all of the order information. We filter it. We spin out XMLs for all the order line items. And then we look up the specs for the job, what it prints on, how many up it prints on, the finished sheets needed, the overall quantity. The other way that we can communicate through middleware is through another FTP received element. So if you can imagine, a client goes on to a storefront, they fill out a business card, order, first name, last name, all that, they check out. We produce a PDF at the storefront level with an XML file that comes in through a watch folder. This is basically just a hot folder that's being watched by Switch. And then we pull it in, and then over here, we impose it. We add a job ticket, which is this portion of the flow down here. So we build a custom job ticket for the plant, and then those tickets go out directly to our server. And then the important part about the middleware that you have, the technology stack, we're an HP shop. As Deborah, I think, said earlier in our conversation, we have all the toys that HP makes pretty much. Is that right, Adam?
Pretty close to it.
So if you walk in our shop, it's just nothing but HP, which is great. But HP also collaborates with Switch, as our middleware provider, and they provide a way to pass information that we've collected in this flow to what's called the digital front end of the press. So this middleware then communicates directly to the press front end, and it goes and loads all of the settings needed for the press. So if you look at this list, it's going to be hard for you guys to see, but we send it a job ticket through the internet input method. And then we go and we tell it, is it duplexing, tumbling, collating, so forth and so on all the way down. So when the pressmen get it, really they're not having to go into the digital front end of the press and set all these settings. They're essentially receiving a ticket that we create. Mm-hmm. That ticket auto prints to a printer at the press. So these tickets pop out as the orders come in. And as the pressmen get a second, they will go into a checkpoint, and the checkpoint is a checkpoint controlled by switch, and they can see all of their jobs. They look at the tickets, they release them, it comes through the DFE configurator and sends everything to the press. So that's pretty much Switch in a nutshell. But it does so much more. If we look at some of our specialty flows, we can create, this is one that Adam created and had me build, but essentially we're getting the Tharstern jobs coming in from a storefront. So if you can imagine an estimating tool run by Tharstern, exposed through a website.
Yep.
The estimate comes in, converts everything to a Tharstern job, and humans not involved in that process. So that's pretty much that. Adam, if you want to take it back.
That's actually a pretty simple looking flow, Dan, compared to the other one you showed there, but it sure does a lot.
Yeah, the real the magic is happening here in this Tharstern module. Mm-hmm. So that's a good point to bring up. The developer that we use to create this has actually written some pretty extensive code. So the job comes in, and this code, this little icon represents about 400 lines of XML code that figures out how to communicate with Tharstern. But as going back to the very beginning of the discussion, if you're out there and you're using an MIS that can't be flexible and you can't readily and easily talk to, then you're sort of dead in the water. You're sort of done before you begin, kind of a thing.
I agree with that. I couldn't go back to a system where we were tied to a single storefront type. I wouldn't do that. Wouldn't do that.
I don't know how much you have planned, but I want to do some Q&As as well. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah. First of all, I was just, Dan, when you worked for InFocus, was that just like a practicing period for you so you could be even better when you returned to Bennett Graphics?
No, actually, I thought I wanted to be a full-fledged developer and write code. I went to work for a really fabulous reseller, Exchange US, and they did everything they said they were going to do. I guess when I got submerged in the coding, I realized that wasn't me, because my value to say Adam and to David Bennett is knowing printing, knowing the workflow, knowing the people that perform the task, and then being able to translate all that to a flow. So we switch, as much as we love it, to your answer, really it's being in the plant, doing time studies,
I was actually kidding, mostly kidding. So don't worry. We got one question from RRCC. We just call him RC now. I think he's been on all our sessions. So wonderful, my favorite person of the days. He is. I think he maybe have a background in the newspaper industry, but that doesn't. That still allows him to ask questions. Good information, sirs. What about the delay in the production due to some technical issues in the print? How to allocate the MIS process? That's a pretty good question.
Yeah.
You get it?
To be honest, I don't get the full question.
Okay, so
I'm not sure I understand 100% either.
Okay, if I understand the way I understood it, See, maybe he comes from another country as well, so maybe we are just on the same bad level of English. No, basically, I think that he says that when you have the MIS and you spoke about the calculation and the automated kind of processes, and I know also from you, Adam, that also implies that you can do last minute changes in what equipment you produce on, right? I think that what RC is asking. So if let's say that you have planned a job for your Indigo 100K. And then for some reason, the Indigo 100K returns with an error saying that I'm offline, I can't do anything, I'm broken, I'm dissolved. So what happens then? Because then it needs to be reallocated to MIS in relating to the prices and in relation to the imposition and things like that, right?
So there's, I think, two different things that are going to happen there on jobs that are inside of the MIS, right? So like not necessarily the storefront side of the jobs that we're doing. Those can simply be pointed at another press in the building, and we move on. We're fortunate, like if our 100K goes down, we can just direct everything straight to Indigo 12,000 or whatever it is on the scheduling side of things, and never think twice about it. Now on the switch side of things, Dan will have to answer exactly how that's going to go down. My process there is panic and call Dan.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
We've been very fortunate that the cool thing about the storefront is it doesn't really require any heavy MIS lifting, because if you can imagine, we're in a B2B environment, so we're not dealing with the public. So the salespeople go in, they sell a storefront account, all the pricing is included and agreed, up front, and then they sign whatever contract or an agreement. So it's fixed pricing. There's no, fluctuation or anything like that.
But that might be true, and of course I believe you. But that refers to the selling prices. I was thinking that sometimes if you want to do the cost analysis as well, then it can have a different approach to it, right?
It can. This is probably out of my realm of things to be an expert on, or at least not.
So who should be called?
Well, I'll think about that as well. But there's I think another thing that may help this person that's asking this question, or CCC, is that if you are in an environment to where you have flexible pricing or flexible products that could either increase the price or decrease the price of the product based on the options that you pick, for instance, so that could fluctuate. We're starting the process, but that would be linking the physical storefront products to a product representative in the MIS. And that's the next level of this process, is to let even in a B2B, you have a base price, whatever that base price is, then you add 10 options to it. Now you're double that base price. That can all be interpreted by the MIS that we use, Starstern, and it can control the billing and the.
Well, let me jump in there too, Dan. If we decided that we wanted to add a new machine, or we wanted to switch the machine that this existing product is on, let's say our Indigo 12,000 is going to be out of the picture for 2 months or something. Because we're linked in our estimates directly to the MIS, for all of our non-storefront jobs and some of our storefront jobs as well, I can just change that setting and inside of the MIS to point at a different machine, and we'll be estimating live on that machine with no change to the product. And that's really a result of the architecture of the system we built for the instant estimating app.
Sure.
But that from that side of things, it's truly a non-issue, because it's going to quote it on whatever the cheapest machine is anyway.
I have a question, which is, as you said, if you have agreed pricing, may be less of an issue. But I was thinking that one of the things you said in your presentation was also that you had that some of the estimations you have got is now automated. So was it 40% or 60% of all the quotes were automated, right?
57% of all quotes are instant.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, have you ever, do you also have like a public storefront, or do you have like customers coming, to you, just to like regular customers that are not like contract customers as well?
To interact with our instant estimating module? No. Okay. We do have customers that come to it to interact, right? We've got I think 3 that are open to it right now. And they're getting estimates indeed every day out of our MIS.
The reason I was asking, Adam, was actually because I was a little curious, because I think that if you're a PSP or a printing company and you are starting to, you know, offload some of the estimations to like robots and computers and things like that, I was wondering, do you feel there could be a fear that the computer or the formulas would turn out prices that will reject customers from buying from you? I mean, so is the success rate good enough to count on it?
So when we started that testing, right, the first thing we used was not actually our MIS. We used a system called Spreadsheet Web, right? So it'll take the content. Web, yeah. It'll take the contents of a spreadsheet and allow you to pick the interface for it, and use that spreadsheet behind the scenes to create a calculation. And then you can trigger whatever other action, right? Like PDF this one page of the document and send it, right? Well, in our case, that was a quote letter that we had done. So
so you got like a little opportunity to have like researching where the estimates were, so you could balance out if you had to change variable. Because I mean, if I look at your production equipment, that is not as simple as people might think, because you have the 100K, you have the 12,000, you have, is it the 6800 or
6800?
Yeah, 6800. Then you have an offset press, then you have a Scodix, and then you have a
high format presses.
Yeah. 7900
laser die cutters.
Yeah. So when I look at the complexity of this, I mean, if you estimate a price per whatever measure you do, you could easily get something that, you know, could fly off in the wrong direction, right?
So there was some extensive testing done to make sure that that wasn't possible. And essentially on the spreadsheet website of things, when I first built that one, you weren't able to pick an option that it could not handle. So if you picked, hey, I want a roll-fed label, right? Well, it's going to take the sheet-fed devices completely out of the picture. You can't make this choice. And it actually our current MIS one does that as well.
With tape.
So we try to kind of put the bumpers at the bowling lane, put those up on those products so that you can't throw a gutter ball. But we did discover
and if you
our close rate on instant estimates, right? So when we're the first ones with a price, it was 30%. That's a good close rate for a printing company too, by the way. It goes to 50% if you deliver that back to the customer instantly. So I don't really care if it's off 5% on the price or not. If we're winning almost 50% more jobs when we deliver that, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if we're up 5. And in fact, giving away a secret here, but all of our instant estimates are at full markup. We don't flinch on those. So it's not a issue where we're discounting things deeply and stuff like that. So no, if you're comfortable with what you have on the estimating and you've vetted it thoroughly, and you can prevent people from making choices that aren't technically possible in a printing environment, I'm not scared of people making that decision.
I mean, maybe this is an odd question, but I ask you anyway. If you look at what you just said with the success rates of your orderings or your offers, and if you pair that with maybe that you also know that sometimes on average the prices could be a bit higher than if it was discounted by a stupid salesperson. I was just wondering. Do you think that also applies to the fact that Bennett Graphics have this high reputation and being an award-winning company focusing on quality? I'm asking because I think that sometimes if you look at commodity printers where you really are on the margins from time to time, then you can't have a price differentiation that really, you know, flies away from the competition, because then you would lose customers. And I was maybe thinking that with your go-to-market strategy, maybe that actually tell people that, okay, you have to have leverage for a little bit higher prices.
Yes, that's fair. That's true. We have, for what it's worth, on a lot of the bigger volume, we put in place checks so that a customer can't get $100,000 price from us, right? They can't get a
okay. So there's like
price on 50,000 books from us, right? We're going to, if you say, hey, I need a, like I said, 100,000 of a 28-page calendar, it's gonna make it in our system in automation, and it's gonna give the customer the estimate number. We're the salesperson most of the time, the estimate number on a project like that, and then an estimator is gonna pick that up and go, oh my goodness, I need to have somebody take a look at this and go be sure that we've got the cheapest possible paper price. We've got every last little tweak made so that we have that market advantage.
So you still have that ability to have that interaction also when it comes to products where maybe the prices are more sensitive, right?
Right.
Guys, I have to stop now. Has been a wonderful session. Yeah, it was great. I mean, an hour flies by fast, right? So thank you very much, and thank you also. I saw that some of your bosses actually appreciated you online for being the smart guys, and I have to agree with him. So even you, Adam, you really stand out. I must say that. So
it's been a very flattering.
It's time to get higher salaries, guys. Go there now. Right? No, yeah, I'm just kidding. Okay, thank you very much.
Phone number.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, it was wonderful to meet you. I will catch up with you next week. So we just end up this this conversation just between us as well. So I will play a video. See you soon. Thank you very much, and remember everybody to go to the next session. Bye.
Thank you.